Aloha mai kako. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. This is 9.6 that we'll be working on. This is factoring trinomials ax squared plus bx plus c. We're going to continue with this skill and technique of factoring. However, what's different about 9.6 compared to 9.5 is that there will be a coefficient other than 1 in front of x squared. So it will be more difficult to factor, but there is a workaround that I will show you. This is a technique Mr. Mike taught me, and I will be passing it on to you guys. Okay. The method presented here in this particular video is called, for lack of a better name, the multiply and divide method. All right. If you look that up on the internet, you probably won't find it because it's not called that. I just named it that. And I think it's pretty apt, and I hope it can help you remember how to do this method. Okay, this is called the multiply and divide method. And I'll even explain why it works. So it relies basically on making trinomials with a coefficient other than 1 in front of x squared. If the lead coefficient is not 1, we're saying it makes it more challenging. But if we make the lead coefficient and turn the problem back into a trinomial with a lead coefficient 1, then that's our workaround. And hopefully it will be more direct and straightforward. And I'll show you how that works. Okay, here's our first example. 2x squared plus 11x plus 15. Now, the method that I grew up learning is that this is essentially guess and check. And I'll show you how guess and check works. Obviously, these first terms have to multiply together to get us 2x squared. They have to get us the 2x squared. So one of these has to be 2x and the other has to be x. Because if we multiply 2x times x, we would get 2x squared. Now, the signs on this problem, we'll keep it as direct as possible for these first few, is going to be plus plus. How we know that is because these are going to multiply to be a positive. And when we do the outside and the inside, it's going to be positive. So the only way that can happen is if the signs are plus plus. How I was taught to do this problem when I was growing up was this number and this number need to be factors of 15. That will be 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Those are the only factors of 15. And where to place them, okay, because it could be 1 and 15, it could be 15 and 1, it could be 3 and 5, or it could be 5 and 3. I'll put that in 1 and 15, or it could be 15 and 1, or it could be 3 and 5, or it could be 5 and 3. Basically, it's a matter of intuition or guess and check. Okay, and that's why we rely on our speed and being able to FOIL quickly. This is where we rely on our ability to FOIL quickly. Okay, so we know kind of intuitively we don't want the 5 here, because if we did, when we did the outside, that would be 10x, and we'd need the 3 here. That would be 10x plus 3x. That would leave a linear term of 13x. We are not aiming for 13x, we're aiming for 11x. Okay, so we might want to intuitively think in our mind, hey, isn't 5 plus 6 11? Yes. Okay, so to get a 5, we would want this here, this 5 here, so that when we do that, we'll get a 5x, and we'll want the 3 here, so that when we do the outside, we'll get the 6x. And of course, we might want to double check our answer mentally. This times this is 2x squared. The outside is 6x. The inside is 5x. That would amount to 11x. That would add up to 11x. And the last 5 times 3 is 15. Okie dokie. So that's what we're looking at. Now, that is not the multiply and divide method that we are focusing on in this video. I will show you the multiply and divide method. Okay. So we've already solved the problem, and that's via guess and check. This is the multiply and divide method that we are going to show you, and this should connect back to 9.5 and make it a little more straightforward. So here's where we do what we do. We're going to circle this 2, and we're going to multiply it by the constant term. Okay. So this 2 kind of gets shared and spread to the 15, so that the trinomial we're working with now is x squared plus 11x Let me slide this over here. X squared plus 11x plus 30. Now, this looks weird. It's a different trinomial, but I will explain why this technique works. Okay, so you're going to just spread this 2, pick it up and move it and multiply it by 15. And this is where we're at now. Now, why would we want this? Because this trinomial is much easier to factor than this, okay? Because the lead coefficient is now 1. And so there's no interaction between the outside and the inside. That's what makes this problem a little more challenging in 9.6, okay? This lead coefficient of 2. So that the outside and the inside makes it it takes a little more time to calculate and compute. But this, on the other hand, is a fairly straightforward trinomial. So we're going to factor this like so. We're thinking of 2 numbers that multiply to 30 and that adds or subtracts to 11. Those numbers are 6 and 5. Okay, so we're going to have x plus 5 times x plus 6. Doesn't matter the order. Now, if you realize this is called the multiply and divide method. Multiply and divide method. Well, we've definitely multiplied, but we haven't divided yet. So here comes the division. Okay. In this step, we are going to, since obviously this answer and this answer doesn't quite match, but it will soon. We're now going to divide this number by 2 and this number by 2. This is where it gets a little fuzzy, but don't worry, I'll explain why we do all these steps later. This will divide evenly. That becomes x plus 3. Since this does not divide evenly, 5 over 2, that's 2.5, okay? We will take this 2 and move it as the coefficient of that first binomial, move it to the lead coefficient of that first binomial. So this becomes a 2x plus 5. Remember how that happened is we took this 2 and slid it right in there. And this is the answer. Notice it now matches that. That is how we use the multiply and divide method. You can pause and rewind and rewatch the video if you want for the additional explanation. Let's try it on this one. Okay, this is our second example. Again, I'll show you how I was taught. How I was taught was basically guess and check. 3 is a prime number, so it has to be made by 3x and an x. There's no other combinations. The signs are plus plus. Okay, and now there's a bit of guess and check. The factors of 4 are 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. If I just decide to go with 2 and 2, okay, the outside will be 6x, the inside will be 2x, and that is how I'm going to get my 8x. So this is the answer. And that's how that works. But notice how that we need to check that answer. And it took a little bit of intuition and ability to foil. We also could have guessed incorrectly. We could have started with 4 and 1 or 1 and 4, but we should quickly realize that wouldn't work. If we did the outside, that would be 12x, and that's already a little much. Okay. If we went with 4 and 1 instead, the outside would be 3x and the inside would be 4x. That's close, but it wouldn't get us our 8x. So this is the right answer. How do we do this with our multiply and divide method? Here it goes, guys. Pay attention. We're going to circle this 3. We're going to multiply it by 4 and move it. Okay, so it's x squared plus 8x plus 12. This trinomial is relatively straightforward to factor. We're looking for factors of 12 that add or subtract to 8. That number would be 6 and 2. So I'll do x plus 6 times x plus 2. But we're not done. Remember this 3 that we circled? We need to then divide. We now need to divide because it's called the multiply and divide method. So we're going to divide by tree. We're going to divide by tree over here. Since this divides evenly, we will change it. So this will be our x plus 2. Since this does not divide evenly, we will take this 3 and move it and make it the coefficient of that x. So this factor becomes 3x plus 2. Notice this answer is equivalent to this answer. 3x plus 2 times x plus 2. And the order is just different, but it doesn't matter the order in which we multiply. It's the same. Okay. Now, you might be wondering, how and why does this method work? Okay. And if you want the explanation, here it is. The 3x squared plus 8x plus 4. Obviously, there's something very, very unique happening when we move this 3 and multiply it by 4. That's not something we often do in math. As a matter of fact, that's not legal. Okay, but I do want to show you what the overlap is between the actual math to the shortcut method. So here's the actual math behind this. We are going to factor out a 3. You can't, like I said, you can't just pick up a 3 and multiply it by the constant. Like this expression, including the 3, is very different from this expression. They are not equivalent, okay? But it's just a shortcut. But I'll show you where these techniques overlap. If we factored out a 3 over here, we'd get x squared plus 8 thirds x plus 4 thirds. Okay, if you distributed, you'd get 3x squared. These 3's would cancel when you distribute, so you'd get plus 8x. And when you distribute, these 3's would cancel and you get plus 4 as our last term. We do not want to write it this way, though. We want to write it like this: x squared plus 8 thirds x plus, instead of writing 4 thirds, we are going to write it with a denominator of 9. Now, why would we do that? Because when we eventually when we eventually factor this expression that we get here, the constant terms of each binomial will have a denominator of 3. Okay, it'll be something over 3 times something over 3 over here. So when you multiply across the denominators, you'll have a denominator of 9. So we're going to multiply by, to get a denominator 9, we multiply the bottom by 3 and we multiply the top by 3. This will be 12 over 9. Now you see here, this is close to that. Okay. If you ignore the denominators, they are exactly the same. If you ignore the denominators to this bottom trinomial, you'll have x squared plus 8x plus 12, which is where that's coming from. Okay. Now, mind you, I forgot the 3. These expressions are all equivalent. Okay. All these problems, all these different ways of writing it are still equivalent to the original expression. So what we're doing is we're building something that will be the right factorization. Okay. Okay. This 3 is this 3. And I'm going to try to factor this trinomial inside the parentheses. Now, how I will do that is I need an x and an x here. And to multiply to 12/9 and add to 8 thirds is similar to multiplying to 12 and adding to 8, except I'll just include a denominator of 3 on each of those terms. So it'll be x plus 6 over 3 times x plus 2 over 3. Okay? Because if you do the outside, that's 2 thirds x, and the inside is 6 thirds x. That will amount to 8 thirds x. And if you multiply this times this, you'll get 12/9, which is that. This was this. That's where the 3, that denominator 3 kind of pokes back into the problem. And this actually simplifies as it is because it is what it is. This is x plus 2. However, you have this 3 hanging here, and it can be multiplied, namely distributed into the second binomial. And we're going to multiply x plus 2 thirds. That's this guy. times 3. So this 3 will go here, and it will make it a 3x. And this 3 will multiply by 2/3. The 3's will cancel, and it will leave us plus 2. And that is how this technique actually works. Okay? The multiply and divide technique is a shortcut to this. But it is a shortcut that works. So you don't actually have to do all this. You can follow the protocol and process here, and it will just work out just fine. But it's our Kuliana to at least show you why this technique actually works. Okay. All right. Let's do 2 more examples and call it a day. This is our multiply and divide method. You're going to take the 7, multiply, move it and multiply it to the 8. So we got x squared plus 30x plus 56. Now, this is a much easier trinomial to factor because we have a lead coefficient of 1. This goes back to our 9.5 techniques. We're now going to come up with factors of 56 that adds or subtracts to 30. In this case, it's adds, but that's a general question you should be asking yourself. I will list all the factors of 56 here. 4 and 14 and 7 and 8. The factors here of 56 that adds or subtracts to 30 is only this one. So I will do x plus 2 times x plus 28. Now, mind you, we did have the multiply, but we haven't divided yet. So how this technique is called the multiply and divide technique, we've got to now divide by 7, divide by 7, this number that we circled earlier. We'll bring it back in. Since this divides evenly, we will divide it. So that's x plus 4. And since this does not divide evenly, we will move this and move it and multiply it. And it'll be the lead coefficient of x. It'll be the coefficient of x. And this will become 7x plus 2. And this is the right factorization. We can check that real quick mentally. This times this is 7x squared. Outside is 28x. Inside is 2x. We're going to add those to be 30x. And this times this, 2 times 4 is 8. Okay. Last problem. I still want to see those factors of 56 that I wrote over here. And let's do this. The multiply. This is called the multiply and divide technique. We're going to multiply first. And this is a pretty straightforward trinomial for us at this stage. This needs to be an x and this needs to be an x. Now, the signs for this problem have to be either plus plus or minus minus or mixed. I know I'm going to focus on this constant. This times this in the FOIL process, that's the L in the FOIL process. This times this needs to multiply to negative 56. So I know the signs have to be a plus and a minus. Okay, because positive times a negative is going to be negative. So here are my signs. Now I look over here and I ask myself, which of these factors of 56 can add or subtract to 10? Notice I'm kind of ignoring signs, but I'm saying add or subtract to 10. That would obviously be 4 and 14. Where I notice this is negative, so the negatives have to dominate. So the negative sign has to go with the larger number. So I know this is x minus 14, and the 4, I'll go with that. Now, don't stop here, though. We've multiplied, but we haven't divided yet, so we have to bring this 7 back into play. This divides evenly, the second binomial, so this will be x minus 2. And since this doesn't divide evenly, I'll take the 7 and slide it up to be the coefficient. So this will be 7x plus 4. And this is the right factorization. If we do the first, 7x squared, we're just checking our answer now. The outside is minus 14x. The inside is plus 4x. That's minus 10x. And this times this, the last will be negative. Okay, good luck, guys. And that is 9.6 in a nutshell, introducing this new technique that Mr. Mike showed me and that we've worked on together. This is the multiply and divide method. Thank you. Talk to your Kumu if you have questions.